Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook to stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcast can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, posts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now and join the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's live podcast series, The Weekly Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time with us on the YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to check out our new exclusive Rumble channel, Uncensored. We are going to be we've actually gone live on that. Can't go live until we get 25 followers, and then we can do live shows. But we do have quite a few things up there already. And so let's jump in tonight. We have with us for the first time from the great lands of Australia, Dijana. Do you want to improve your mental, physical, and spiritual health? If that's a yes, then stay tuned. Dijana is a certified professional holistic counselor, intuitive mentor, and transformation guide who is passionate about guiding people to their highest potential. Since 2005, she has supported hundreds of people on their journey of self-awareness and personal development. She works with individuals, families, and communities to heal, strengthen, and awaken awareness of their mind, physical, emotional, and quantum energy fields so they can have thriving, powerful, and deeply fulfilling lives and relationships. Taking a 100% person-centered approach, she integrates mind, body, emotion, spirit into wholeness, awareness, acceptance, and love. Let's welcome, for the first time to the show, Dijana. Welcome.
Thank you. What a wonderful welcome. Thanks for having me, Paul. Hi,
you were
everyone.
very, very welcome. Very welcome. So, how did this all start for you? How did you get into this?
So it started with when I. So let me start with. I'm trying to think in my head where to start. I will just say that I was born and raised in former Yugoslavia, in a little town on the border of what's now Serbia and Hungary. And I immigrated with my family back in 1988 when I was 17. And when we came to Australia at the age of 17, my family and I escaped the war by about 6 months. So it was all really emotionally, mentally, just really difficult. Like the whole thing was just difficult, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of my later teenage years being in a lot of grief. But interestingly enough, what happened for me was twofold. The first thing was that without realizing that I was praying, I think I prayed myself to a meditation class. So when I was 18, back in 1989, I started to learn how to meditate in order to make sense of what was going on in my head, because I felt so cloudy and so awful. And I think intuitively, I just knew that something wasn't quite right. And I was really only just looking to kind of give myself 5-minute break from all this mental stuff that was going on with me. Like, I
Yeah.
even knew back then at the age of 18 that something wasn't right. Yeah. But mental health, of course, back then was not a thing. Well, meditation wasn't a thing unless you were into a cult, to be honest.
Yeah.
In fact, my poor Eastern European parents thought that I was in a cult, and they actually hired someone to follow me to check and see what the hell I was doing.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really quite intense. But so that was one part of the kind of story. And then the other part of the story was that I was really like not well. I had endometriosis. Do you know what endometriosis is? So it's
I've heard of it. Yeah.
okay. So endometriosis essentially is like um, um, so really painful monthly cycles. It's when things don't work really well, and so there's a lot of pain, and it's really kind of excruciating actually. And it was undiagnosed because, again, back then nobody really knew what you were talking about. People didn't even talk about painful, monthly
Yeah.
cycles or anything like that. You just kind of, no one talked about anything back in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I then, was looking for some answers here in Sydney in the late 80s, early 90s. And all I kept getting was from doctors and professionals was either go on a pill or go and have some kids and you'll be fine. Go find yourself a husband. Like, literally, doctors would say this to me. Go find yourself a husband, have some kids, and you'll be fine.
Wow.
Or go on the pill.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's got to be like other ways to do this. So I proceeded to then, go on my own, instinctual and intuitive journey of what can I, to find what are the other things that I could do.
Yeah.
And my mum at the time had all the do you remember I don't know how old you are, but you and some of your audience might remember Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh,
This
yeah.
was the early Google. Yeah. And
Yep.
so and so I found an encyclopedia. I forget which edition it was, but I was reading through it one day and I found evening primrose oil, a plant, and it talked about the reproductive system, right? And
Yeah.
it talked about some of these things, and I'm like, herbs, I wonder if I can find this somewhere. So I went and I found like a vitamin store, like a natural therapy store, retail store.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that sold evening primrose oil capsules.
Huh.
So I started to take that, and it was after a little while, because it's an oil, it has to build up in your body before you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And after a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, I started to notice a difference, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what else I can find, right? So then I researched, like I found ginkgo, I found vitamin, like B's, certain ones like the B12 and stuff would be really helpful for like, and like magnesium for muscle, for cramping and inflammation. And then I discovered aromatherapy oils, and I started to experiment and put together like different concoctions and like rub it on my belly, like massage my belly with aromatherapy oils as I was like cramping and I had a lot of pain and stuff. And then I would use what I was learning in meditation and my breath to manage the pain. So in other words, I became my own freaking experiment. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I discovered things that were helpful. And then I started to think, well, why isn't this like happening? Like in like everywhere. Like, why aren't doctors doing this? Like, why is it? So anyway, long story short, I then started to study natural medicine. I started to study more about breath work. I studied pranic healing. I understood crystals better. I then started to do more around, quantum physics and energy. And then I was actually, I was studying, what was I studying? I was studying to be a botanist, so botanical medicine, right?
Mm,
And so as I'm studying about, of course, the power of plants and all that, and the healing power of plants and all of those things, I come across a course that was an experimental course by the Australian government where they combined psychology with natural medicine into one course to see whether this would, like what this would do, like whether there was interest, whether this was something they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think the government supported this learning for about 3 years. I was one of the students that was really lucky to and really honored to get to do this. So alongside all the psych stuff, I also then learned about all sorts of different modalities,
Wow.
like traditional Chinese medicine, kinesiology, more on aromatherapy, psychology of sport, and like family, like just about everything that I ever wanted to do, I got to do in that course.
Yeah.
And so because my experiment on myself was holistic, what this course did is gave me the piece of paper and permission to then go and pass on the knowledge.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool too. Like being and being an intern within, a governmental program too is kind of like, that's kind of cool. It's got its own persona. It's like, ooh.
It was fascinating, but I mean, they canned it after 3 years because, well, I could be a conspiracy theorist as to why they canned it after.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. We can say why. I mean, that's we won't be taken down for that because we know what. Yeah, we know the pharmaceutical industries now. It's like it's a threat. It's a threat. So
period.
It's like free energy.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. It was just, it's so successful. It is like just understanding really the different layers and the power of I am is extraordinary. So then, the way this unfolded for me, and it wasn't conscious. In fact, I didn't consciously realize what was happening for a really long time, because eventually I had the wisdom of personal experience, but also in retrospect. But I didn't always realize what was happening. And what I'm getting to is, then after I graduated in 2005 and started to I opened my practice and I started to practice for myself.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, I tried to get a job and I couldn't find not one place that aligned with those values that were core values then for me, right?
Yeah.
Around holistic health and well-being, right? So I thought, okay, so I'll just open my own practice and I'll go from there. I'll see how we go from there. Once that happened, it was as if the universe then went, okay, so now you're here to anchor aspects of collective awakening. So the first thing that I started to notice was that all of a sudden, up until sort of the early 2000s, the 2007, 5, 6, 7, 8 period.
Yeah.
Right? Energetic period, the kind of push leading up to 2012, right?
Yeah.
In that period, all of a sudden we went from, right, waking up in our bodies collectively, meaning there were all of a sudden lots of people wanting to be like trainers, and, you know, like going to the gym was becoming really popular after the 80s, you know, like the Jane Fonda thing and all of that. Like
Yeah.
people were becoming more aware of their physical health, right? And so then we come into the 2000s, into the noughties, and all of a sudden people are starting to talk more about their emotions, right?
Mm.
And so the emotional body starts to wake up, right? A little bit more. We're still a little bit at that state, but moving past that. But it was like, and we started to talk more about mental health as well. So that was, we were reducing the sort of taboo aspects of mental health and realizing that it's much more common than what was being talked about.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was positioned to hold space for this awakening, right? And so it was like we're moving just from the physical into, okay, so there's this mental thing, and oh my God, I have emotions and I'm allowed to talk about it. Are you kidding me? Like, I actually have feelings and there's words for this thing that's going on inside of me. There's
Yeah.
words for this stuff that's going on in here. And so I then spent the next few years focusing on supporting the collective energy in this way, right? And then after 2012, things started to change. They started to change for me, but they also started to slowly shift in the collective, right?
Yeah.
Where we then moved more into slowly talking about spirituality, like yoga, meditation was starting to come more into the collective consciousness, and etc. And so fast forward to now, this period now, we are well versed, many of us in the collective consciousness are well versed in all things maybe spiritual, including the language around spiritual awakening. But I
Yeah.
think what's happening now is that energy, that conscious energy, that photon light that we embody is really shaking up all the yuck from underneath and bringing it to light. We
Yeah.
have to see all the rubbish before we can change it, because we can't change what we don't know.
True. And there's a lot of stuff that we definitely don't know that's
Yep.
starting to pour out of the dark ethers of space, time, and the planet and stuff. And that's the thing, is this seems to be the perfect time. It's like, you know, all of us awakening in this process. You know, at first we're thinking, oh, well, I'm doing this for me. I want to get in touch with, I want to know who I am. I want to get my power back. I want to understand what my potentials are. But then as you start to realize that, now it's like, boom, now we have to do it for the rest of humanity. We got to teach other people how to do it
Together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
God knows
Yeah.
we need it now.
Yes, we do. And we have to work together. But it's not just any kind of work, right? This is where I sometimes still kind of cringe a little bit when I listen to, you know, other people try and explain the current phenomenon. And I'm talking more sort of intuitively and spiritually and sort of the higher, you know, potentials and dimensions of
Yeah.
of awareness and personal development and etc. Right? So I'm hearing a lot of people talk about how self-love, self-awareness, all of that is not necessary as long as you're in service to the collective.
Yeah.
In my experience, right, there is no collective without the I am, because we are individuated as beings of the all that is in this physical realm.
Yeah.
This individuated soul right? Me, that's that's wearing this meat suit, right?
Yeah.
Today, is here to experience this physical realm and remember my highest potential so that I can act out, reinforce whatever my soul's vision was for this life,
Yeah.
right?
And to
I'm here
ultimately
to
be in
remember,
service.
and then when I'm at my highest potential, I can then ultimately give all of me to that process, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm giving myself in service to humanity and there are still wounded parts of me that are held up in the karmic cycle, what I have to offer is potentially of lower vibration by default.
Yeah.
Right? So if we are thinking of energy as a kind of vortex of evolution, circular, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, we step it or transcending those sort of linear uh, conditions, the way we've been conditioned to think in those linear terms, those human linear terms. Multidimensionality is not linear. It's more like a vortex, much more like a vortex of as our chakras or meridians or whatever, however whatever your framework is for the energy centers within this existence, physical existence, right? And so, and when I collaborate or work consciously with spirit, right? A few years back, around 2017-18, spirit, or I began to receive or channel messages around this thing called 5D, right? And what that was going to look like. And new language started to come in, such as, divine architecture. And I'm like, well, I'm not an architect. That sounds too left brain to me. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so I began to download information around what the matrix of 5D actually looks like, which is me at my highest potential, right? In the present moment, completely devoted to this moment and to you in this moment, to this process, right?
Yeah.
You of the equal devotion, you and I create a third energy, that union energy, right? So that's you and me equals 3, right?
Yeah.
And so the 5D matrix, right? And this is apparently, from what I've been shown, the divine architecture, the grid for 5D is made up of these triangles, which when you break them down is you and me equals 3, the Trinity, the third energy. But it's conscious, and we need to be know how to be fully present in this process, because what you and I create, that third energy, is what gives it that triangle, if you will, which is that sacred geometry.
Yeah.
So that's 5D, that's divine architecture, right? Which is why it's so important to have that full journey of self-actualization. We can't bypass the self.
True. And a lot of people
right?
have especially when it comes to being able to engage. I mean, a lot of our attention span, is all different. But I mean, normally what the adult attention span is about 8 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds, give it. So our minds are always thinking about other stuff and is always just going off into a tangent. But trying to be in the moment and engaging 100% of your mind, body, spirit any particular situation for longer than that.
It's not an easy thing to do.
Correct.
It requires discipline. It requires understanding. It requires that wisdom, that actualization.
Mhm.
It requires, even knowing, what it means to be in union. Like, so, just using one example, right? So
Yeah.
right now, I'm aware of my physical body. I'm aware how I'm sitting. I'm aware of my straight posture. I'm aware that I'm facing you. I'm aware that I'm warm, but I'm comfortable, right? All of those things.
Yeah.
I'm aware that my mind is present with the structure of as I format my sentences. I'm aware that my heart chakra is open and I'm completely at peace. I'm enjoying this conversation. Intuitively observing the flow and exchange of energy that you and I have. I'm sending blessings to whichever audience members are here now or on a different timeline that will watch this eventually.
Yeah.
So all of these things are happening simultaneously in this present moment. And that takes a little bit of discipline. It takes a hell of a lot of journeying, and wisdom, for us to be able to receive the gift of this moment, but also give the gift of this moment, because it's that exchange, and this energy is then multiplied infinitely, that then creates that sacred geometry of three, the Trinity, and millions upon millions of those Trinity energies is what creates the conscious Christ consciousness unified field and the matrix of 5D.
Yeah.
That's what we are moving into now. It's incredible.
It's an incredible era of time that we live in today.
Mm-hmm.
And now these are programs. These are things that you teach people through your website and through your podcasts.
Yeah. So when I work, I can work in the more traditional sense. So just as a counselor, right? We can have a normal therapy session. But over the last few years, excluding a little bit of that COVID period, because when we were going through COVID, Spirit said, okay, you need to really just support people with, just with what was going on. So I did a lot of, much more of the traditional counseling sort of work through the COVID period. However, I've been moving away from that work as much as I possibly can, because I downloaded and I wrote programs that specifically deal with aspects of this spiritual awakening, right? Whatever journey that is. So whether it's, like the dark night of the soul, so doing more of that shadow work, whether it's understanding more about divine partnerships and unions and what that actually means, not the romanticized hysterical version, but what does that actually mean, right? To be in union, right? And transcend those fractured linear states. And to also understand what it actually means to awaken, so that we're not bypassing, thinking that if we go to a yoga class, all of a sudden we woke.
Yeah, so things aren't that easy.
Or if, and this is not to diss anything, because all of these trends are really important aspects of that trajectory of evolution, right?
Yeah.
But no one thing is the answer. No one crystal is the answer to anything. No one purified water. No one vegan is the answer to everything. Like no one, shed 5 pounds of fat off your ass is the answer for anything. Like none of that. right?
It takes an ensemble of and it's a construction of many different things to build on, and it's continuous. It never ends. So
It's
in my opinion.
continuous and it's completely unique to
Yeah.
each and every person.
Yeah.
Completely unique. And so it is our responsibility as an individual to work out what those unique parts of us are. And so people like me will come in and support you in that discovery and in that journey and show you how to look perhaps, or how to remember, more so than the more directive approach of this is what you have to do and it's only this and one size fits all, because that just doesn't work.
Yeah. Let's go check out your website real quick here. So
Okay, honey.
here's your
Thank
website,
you.
Dijana.org, and
Mhm.
this is the homepage. But let's check out. So you got the Integrative Holistic Health and Well-being Program, the
Mhm.
Life Reflection and
Yep.
Self-Healing, and then you have these other three down here. The Mentoring
Yeah.
Program.
So yes. Yeah. So there's the two on the top are online self-paced programs. So anyone can go in there and you can spend your time going through and learning and applying some of these tools that I talk about, these online programs. So both of these programs come from my own personal experience. They were written, I have taught them over many years, but
Yeah.
then wrote the online version of it. So it's really about, see that integrative holistic health and well-being program? So
Yeah.
what I talk about in that particular program is what I've done is I've put together a program where I it, instead of people going to sound healing and then going to yoga and then going to meditation, then go to breath work and then they go doing this and that, they can still go and do that. But this program shows people how to integrate all those different modalities into their everyday life so that it's actually effective, so that it's not just a theory, and so that it doesn't seem like it's too hard basket. And then you go to a meditation class and then you never meditate again because you just don't know how to implement it into your life, right?
Yeah.
And so the actual practical kind of recommendations of how to actually go about living a more empowered holistic life every single day.
Wow.
Now, those bottom ones, they're one-on-one programs, mentoring
these
programs.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mentoring program, divine partnership, self-mastery, and a boot
Yep.
camp. Ooh, boot camp.
The boot camps, the shadow work, that's the dark night of the soul, baby. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is cool. And these are obviously remote. You don't have to be in Australia and be in person to do
You
this.
don't.
This is all
Absolutely not.
online based courses and stuff like that.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what's really wonderful about this is that the material itself is kind of attuned to that divine feminine goddess energy, because it's bringing in the potential of what we can experience in this human body. And then the steps is that extraordinary masculine, divine masculine energy that takes those keys that the feminine brings in from the divine and unlocks all the doors in the physical. So it's the steps we take in our lives that then bring all of that in to fruition, into manifestation. It's so cool. I say it's cool. I do this work, of course, but I say that it's cool and I get so excited about it because it's a collaboration. It's like I've received this information. I'm just as honored and inspired by it as anybody else, because it's universal. It's divine knowledge. It's divine wisdom. It's just so cool.
It's all part of from the ancient mystery schools. This is a power
Mm.
and an energy and a craft that we were meant to do, meant to use to help humanity and be of service, not only humanity
Yes.
but to the universe.
Mm.
What
So
has
much
been
so.
what has
And
been the most breakthrough client that you've had or experience that you've had that was a really cool breakthrough that you've changed somebody, or if they change themselves, because it's not,
yeah. So there's so many like that are literally going through my
yeah,
because if you've been through an awakening, you know how intense that is, how like utterly insane and crazy can be on that journey of waking up to a different reality. So without a doubt, every person that I deal with has had those, moments.
yeah,
But the one that I'm going to share with you is, I mean, the story just I feel it in here like a gut punch every time I talk about it. There's a father, a man, a masculine, who was having a few years back, started to have a spiritual awakening. He didn't have the tools to deal with it, didn't know what it was, thought there was something wrong, went to a doctor and ended up in a psych hospital on drugs.
Oof.
Like literally treated like a crazy person.
Yeah,
In and out of hospital for years. By the time he got to me, was almost like, suicidal ideation, all sorts of things, right?
wow,
And so as he began to talk to me, I immediately recognized, some, because there are some common, things that happen to all of us as we begin to shed the veil, as
yeah,
the veil starts to fall off
yeah,
and we start to see differently, right?
yeah,
And so having him have little wins every day, every week, where he's beginning to take his power back, where he's beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could be okay again one day,
yeah,
is, I mean, oh my God. Especially because I think, how close did I come to also ending up like that, where I was hospitalized, or my child would have been taken away from me, because I was going through this really big thing, and my son was only little. He was only about 6, 7, 8, 9. He could have so easily been taken away from me with some of the things that were happening at the time.
yeah,
So I sort of hear those stories and I just go, oh my God. I just, it's inspirational, but it's also like, it's a reality check. And.
yeah. You're going through these epiphanies and realizing, there's much more
It's
potential
real.
here.
It's big.
Yeah,
Yes, it's big. And, those fears that we bring into this lifetime around being, judged and persecuted are very real, because we can all be very judged and persecuted still. It might, we might not be hanged, or we might not burn at the stake, literally, but we can still very much burn at the stake figuratively.
oh yeah,
Very much so,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just look at the last couple of years.
Yep. That or be canceled.
Right? Yes.
That's got a whole new meaning. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, Paul. Absolutely. Yeah.
man.
So but even with that, there's a point to that. And the point is that at soul level, we attract that into our awareness. All of that gets triggered so that we then learn how to transcend that. We learn how to neutralize that energy so that we don't ever have to do that again. You know, how to work with the 0 point. And 0 point is, of course, the point of creation. So when we can take an energy to 0 point, neutralize it, then we've transcended it and we create something new from that point on.
Yeah, the source field. Yeah.
I mean, you're right. There's many, there's many names for this, but I just kind of call it 0 point. The flat line.
Yep.
Because it doesn't have that emotional or mental charge. That's why I call it the flat line.
The flat line. Yeah, there you go. Yep. The singularity. Now we're getting to the quantum physics level.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's already been 40 minutes. It's like, wow. Like you said, we could talk. Yeah, we could talk for hours. But what would you like to leave our audience what kind of takeaway would you like to leave our audience before we end the show this evening?
I would like to say, if you are listening to this, try and see yourself in the world of that you are whole, in wholeness, or through the filter of wholeness, as in you're not just your brain and your mind and your thoughts, you're not just your emotions, you're not just this body, you are all of this and so much more. Your potential is infinite. You are a beautiful, extraordinary expression of all that is in the universe. And so see if you can attune or align yourself in some way to that wonder of who you are. And if you're not sure about how to do that, there's many of us that you can talk to. Feel free to contact me or just message here and we'll have a chit-chatty. It's all good. But see if you can see yourself through this filter of all of who you are, not just one or two different aspects, and play with that. Develop a relationship with yourself, within yourself, and all those different aspects, and your life will just explode into
we got to see our like this. We've heard it many times. The world is a stage. We're these actors that are playing on the stage and stuff. But what's happening behind the curtain? What's happening when we walk off the stage and stuff like that. It's a whole different story that's going on back there. It's all scripted, and we're just all caught up in this in the human agent and stuff, and the human condition. We got to learn how to walk away from it for a little bit and seize the moment.
Totally. What was the movie that talked about seize the moment, or seize? Was it Dead Poet Society? Something about seize the.
So.
Seize the moment, or seize the day, or seize something. Anyway, just popped into my head.
There's quite a few, and it's probably quite a few others out there, like The Matrix.
There's that. That little nugget.
Yep. Follow the white rabbit. Wow. Dijana, it's been a wonderful evening, and thank you for being on the show with us. And you're welcome back. You're welcome back anytime. And even and we can probably get into some stuff that we can't talk about on the YouTube channel. We can jump on to our Rumble, our new exclusive unfiltered Rumble channel, and get into some topics that if you want to talk about. And yeah.
Yeah, rumble in that jungle.
Rumble. Get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Paul. I really, really am grateful, and I appreciate you and what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dijana. Likewise, and say hello to my friends over there in the lands over
The
there.
land of Oz. Yeah.
We actually, yeah, we've had a couple of guests from, I think, was it Melbourne? I think Melbourne and Xavier. Optimistic as Xavier. Yeah, Xavier. I think she's in the Melbourne area. I think.
Okay. All right. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, she's been on the show a couple times, but other than that, but it's building. We're getting friends from all over the world. So I got more in Australia now. So if I ever got to take a trip, I know a bunch of people. So
oh, you can. We will all host you at the same time.
There you go. Awesome. Dijana, thank you. Namaste, my friend.
Thank
Blessings.
you. Namaste. Thank you.
You are
Much
very,
love
very
to you and your beautiful audience. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching the weekly seance. And until next week, we'll see you next Monday.